we're not going to get that today. But survival skills and hypervigilance and reckless self-destructive behaviors are often common. And what's most important is the exaggerated startle response. The exaggerated startle response you've probably seen before, where if a car backfires, people hit the ground. When you have an exaggerated startle response, a person, we used to call them back in the day, we used to call them, people had short fuses. So you would step on their sneakers and they wanted to take your head off. See, that is a part and a symptom of trauma that goes unrecognized in our schools, in our communities, in our families. So what happens is that child may be experiencing trauma. Now, the fact that they have a dissociative reaction, that's like an out-of-body experience, makes them more vulnerable to be re-victimized. Everybody get that? It makes them more vulnerable to be re-victimized. But the hypervigilance, which is always being alert, and the startle reaction, makes them prone to be more aggressive, and oftentimes they become the perpetrators. They're not going to let that happen to them. They saw their friend killed, and they're not going to let that happen to them. So they overreact. They've lost the opportunity or the ability to modulate a reasonable reaction to what they perceive as danger. So those are the issues of trauma. Now, that exaggerated response can perpetuate more violence in the community. And with access to handguns, with access to knives and weapons, our children are out there who are already traumatized, homicides in Baltimore City. In the last year, actually since January, is 217 murders. Now, if every child who saw their friend murdered, let's exaggerate this more. If 10 children saw a friend murdered, we have now 10 people who have been traumatized, who are potentially more violent. That's including the perpetrator. That's including the perpetrator. So we have an epidemic as we have in this community to really address in a holistic fashion trauma, not just the victim, but the witnesses. And all the witnesses and all the families that have been traumatized, they become potential violent people.
Who is the president and co-founder of Roberta's House. Roberta's House is a globally recognized nonprofit grief support center that provides grief education, peer support groups, and grief camps to children, adults, and families in underserved communities. Ms. Marsh-Greer, could you describe the needs that your clients typically present with, and the kinds of services that are the most critical in helping children and families heal from trauma?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Also, thank you, Congressman Cummings, for this opportunity, and all of you out here who are also a part of the solution to Baltimore. I think it's critical that we look at ourselves as answers and how we can address this critical problem in our communities. Roberta's House provides a unique service where we serve families who come to us who've experienced the death of someone close. Children as young as 2 years of age through 17 with their adult family providers. And what we recognize is that these families experience multiple losses. Of course, homicide is probably about 40% of our population, and then the rest consists of poor health, general health care issues around, loss of renal failure, diabetes, heart disease, and others, and of course substance overdose. And many of these families come to Roberta's House with mental health care diagnoses that are undiagnosed or dual diagnosis. And there's mental and physical abuse that's generational within the families. There's previous sexual abuse and traumas within the family system and children with incarcerated parents. There's a lot of school bullying, family separations, homelessness, poverty and instability. Families are constant and transient. It's very difficult for us to do follow-up care because families are moving from one place to another. There's a lot of distrust because many of the families also are involved with CPS, so they're very guarded and unwilling to admit the lack of access and ability to provide to meet their children's needs. We find that many of our youth are parentified, and they are carrying responsibilities and inappropriate levels of responsibility in the family origin that go unrecognized and unsupported. Many families are using substances to cope with past and current traumas, even the adults in the family, so there's a lack of their ability or capacity to support their children who are also experiencing traumas. Transportation is also a very major issue. We may be able to refer them to resources or even give them a resource of having a program for them to enroll in Roberta's House, but we find that they're not able to get there. And so now we're finding ourselves having to include transportation in our budget, even for the grandparents. Many grandparents now are raising their children and they're on a fixed income. So if we're setting up for mobility, it even becomes a challenge for them to spend $3 to get their grandchild to the services at Roberta's House or any place else. We're finding also that as far as the need, there's a lot of need within the school systems. We believe that our schools today are the safest hubs that our children are in today. However, our teachers and the faculty are experiencing or witnessing much of this trauma within the schools and are not equipped or knowledgeable about how to handle this trauma that our kids are experiencing, and it's coming out, of course, in their behavior, their reactions, their inability to focus, to study, to concentrate, and many of our teachers also have their own personal traumas that they have encountered, and so it's a double-edged sword. Some of the things that we believe that need to take place is there needs to be a major campaign around this, childhood trauma, and education and training should be mandated with anyone who is working with children today, as early as preschool and early childhood. More monies needs to be placed in prevention so that we can catch children at an early age, because much of this trauma is generational and learned behavior. As early as we can start teaching such exercises as mindfulness, in the schools especially. It should be sort of systematic and mandated that every school includes calm classroom best practices, meditation, stress management, relaxation, not only just for the students, but also for the teachers. There are schools now that are incorporating this in morning rituals in the morning and end of the day. We're trying to implement calm classroom in the schools today so that before every instructional period, teachers take a moment to do deep breathing exercises and calming exercises to help, because kids are coming to school with anxiety, with fear, not being able to even walk to school feeling safe creates a lot of anxiety. This past weekend, we took 65 kids to camp. We had kids who had screaming during the night in the middle of their sleep. We've been doing this camp for 10 years. We have kids who have bedwetting experiences, kids who actually have panic attacks in the middle of the night, wake up crying. And these are kids who've experienced or experiencing tremendous amount of fear and traumatic experiences in their lives. So we do think that early intervention, emotional wellness being implemented in all schools is a necessity. And more money towards resilience building. We also think that more family preservation, if there could be more family home visitation programs, because we're finding that families aren't able to navigate or know how to navigate to get to these various resources, and oftentimes they're experiencing discrimination, or they're having to talk to 10 different people in order to get what they need, and so they give up trying to access the resources that they need. These are just some of the things that we're contending with, but if we all could just step back for a moment and try to help and educate, not just by telling our families and children what to do and how to do, but helping them to manage the stress in their lives, helping them to turn their post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth is something that we all have to equip and give the tools of our children and families to deal with.
Thank you so much, Ms. Marshreeder. Now, I have been looking forward to introducing Brianna Harris. She tells us to call her Bree, who is a rising senior at Frederick Douglass High School. Bree is part of the African Diaspora Alliance focused on empowering Black youth through African American history. And she's also the liaison to all city schools for Students Demand Action, which is working to reduce Baltimore City gun violence by 10% by 2020. Thank you, Bree, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Wynn. Thank you, Congressman Cummings, for allowing us to be here for this very important conversation. So the official definition of trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. I wasn't always familiar with the term trauma, as I thought the stresses in my life didn't affect me because I was known lots of the issues. I was 5 when my younger brother and I moved in with our dad. He had a wonderful significant other who is now my stepmom, and I couldn't ask for a greater mom. Life was good. We lived a comfortable lifestyle where we were able to go out often and just relax. Things were well until they weren't. I remember the day I found out my older brother was murdered. It was 2014, and my dad called me and my brother downstairs. I don't remember his exact words, but I know it was along the lines of, "Your brother was killed years ago." I didn't cry, no, as I said, I felt nothing. As I watched my little brother break down, I turned to him and told him he had nothing to cry about. Fast forward to summer of 2015. I was getting ready to go into my last year of middle school. I was at my school one summer day with some close friends. My friend Josh came around on his bike with his dog. We started talking amongst ourselves and we left. I wish I would have known that was the last time I would ever see him again. I left around 8:30 that night and got home and received a call from my friend. Josh was dead. She screamed over the phone and I could hear the pain in her voice. What? I asked, not wanting to believe her. The ambulance are on their way. There's blood everywhere. Someone is pressing on the room, but he's not responding. She cried out. I hung up the phone and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to rest in peace post for Josh. That was the first time I cried in a while, as I felt my heart shattered to a million pieces. After Josh's death, I thought nothing could get worse than this. I couldn't bear to go to my school any longer because the spot where he lay taking his last breath was still covered in his blood. I was broken inside and didn't think I would ever be whole again. I put on a fake smile no one seemed to recognize and continued on with my life. I was quiet on the outside, but inside I was screaming and pleading for help. Speaking of help, I didn't receive any. I didn't know who to reach out to or who to talk to. I pretended that his death didn't affect me, although it did greatly, and used the excuse we weren't that close anyway. My dad was in jail again. He made a foolish mistake that cost him his freedom. I wasn't there when he was arrested, and I'm glad because I would have lost my marbles. I just know he was there one day and gone the next. My family struggled a bit after that, but we were still a family. We couldn't afford to fall apart. I went to Baltimore City College High School my freshman year. I struggled like a lot. I couldn't get to school on time, and I struggled with my classwork quite often. Instead of seeking help to better my education, I blamed my lack of effort on all the struggles I was going through. I ended up flunking terribly and transferring to Frederick Douglass High School my sophomore year. I was terrified to go to Douglass. I thought they were a boxing ring. After hearing all the terrible things about the school, I quickly decided that wasn't the best decision I had made. But all along, I was wrong. I made some remarkable friends and relationships at Douglass. We are all a family, and pretty much everyone supports each other. My grades had gotten much better, and I was involved in a lot of clubs at that point. My sophomore year was pretty great. Summer before junior year, I couldn't see the same. My dad got home from jail on my birthday, and he died 3 days later on my sister's. I found him dead in the bedroom. I screamed for him to wake up, but he didn't. I had my father for 3 days, and then he was gone forever. He was sleeping. I don't know when he stopped breathing, but he did. Everyone says it's not my fault, but deep down I feel like it is. Junior year was hard. I cried a lot, and I didn't get a lot of sleep often. Everyone knew that my dad passed, but no one knew how I truly felt. Once again, I became emotionally distant, but this time it came with some anger. I had some great teachers and friends, though, who helped me through my tough times. They would allow me to vent and cry when I didn't know who else to turn to. Junior year went pretty quickly, and then we got hit again. Someone came into our school and shot an assistant teacher. I was in the bathroom with some friends when we left, and the girl told us to go into a room because someone was shooting. We didn't believe her, but we went anyways. Everything was kind of a blur that day. There were tears, laughter, and smiles, but that's when I realized I had had enough. My teacher, Mr. Parsons, helped me write an op-ed for the Baltimore Sun. He had written and had 2 published already, but he told me it was time for the youth to start speaking up, so we did. My other crew got declined, but that was all right. He told me that City Hall wanted 3 students from Douglass to testify about the trauma we faced, especially after encountering a school shooting. And so me, Damani Thomas, and Gianna Santos went and testified. We were very nervous, and I thought nothing would change. But for the first time, we, the youth, spoke, and they listened. I can truly say that after me and my friends helped draft this trauma bill with Councilman D. Cohen and his colleagues, I've actually started to realize all the trials and tribulations that I've been through and how they have affected me. I often have breakdowns and times where I just feel numb. I feel lost in this world, and I don't know how to center myself. My story is just one of many in this city. I know for sure my story isn't the only story that needs to be heard. We are a city with many open wounds. We tend to put band-aids on broken bones, but we can't continue on like this. We have to come together and support each other, and then we can start to heal as a city. United we stand, divided we will fall. Thank you.
That was a mic drop moment. That mic stood off of things. Thank you so much for your courage. Thank you for sharing your story. Can we just hear it again? Bree is a student of the next speaker. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Sonia Setelises, who is the CEO of Baltimore City Schools. Previously, she served as the Vice President for K-12 Policy and Practice at the Education Trust. She was the Chief Academic Officer of Baltimore City Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for a network of 23 pilot schools in Boston. Dr. Setelises, could you describe how trauma impacts students' ability to learn, and also how the expiration of the federal Promoting Student Resilience Grant will impact the school system's ability to address trauma?
So I want to thank Congressman Cummings and Dr. Wynn, but I also want to thank Bree. She's allowing us to call her Bree. Because actually, I don't need to answer the first part of the question. She answered that. And she answered with the voice a trajectory in and out of school, in and out of the community that signals, frankly, one of the things I said yesterday as I welcomed principals and teachers back to prepare for school, that it is actually the responsibility of the youth. And I tell people I am old school. I do not believe that young people need to have to. They should be part of the solution. But quite frankly, they should not have to drum up solutions that frankly are adult and structurally. They should be focused on their potential, their giftings, their development. So I just need to say that because the fact that Bree had to share that in the way that she did is one, a testament to her own agency and strength, but it is an indictment on those of us. Anyway, I know I took out my time, so one of the things that I do think is important when we talk about schools, and I can talk about schools as part of the network. I'm glad I have other colleagues. There are many people in this room who partner with schools, and this idea as healing places, and that is what we are having within city schools. How do we ensure, number one, schools are not re-traumatizing kids? Because we are having hard conversations in the school system about schools, yes, being places of healing, but checking our own behaviors, our own reactions, like what Annette said, with regard to training for teachers about how to recognize, but also how our systems and practices. So when does Bree, within the course of a day, whether she is in high school or within a pre-K classroom, get the chance to be able to share with a trusting, caring adult some of what she is going through, not because every teacher, and I want to be real clear, not every teacher, and I'm talking, and I know that our health commissioner, I know Dr. Zadar agrees with me, that we're not trying to make teachers mental health professionals. Our children deserve mental health professionals, not teachers also trying to teach how to read, who then are supposed to somehow master skills that she and her colleagues have spent years developing. So part of our focus is how do we make sure, one, within our curriculum, as we are teaching children, yes, to read, and I don't have time to give you all of the data about what happens when you don't know how to read, and you don't know how to write, and you're still faced with these same facing issues. But I will say this, that within our curriculum, we're training teachers on how to have those kind of positives within lessons, how to take the brain breaks, how to be able to share, right? So part of our curriculum review is how do we build that into the day. The second piece that we focused on is how do we make sure that we have places in schools, which we are calling wellness centers. We started out with 20 schools, we're moving to 40 this year. Trained staff individuals, many of whom, by the way, community liaisons. These are people who understand the community, but who are getting trained in how do you help young people who might have a kind of incident occurring either at home or in the community. They come into school, a teacher with 28 kids in her class does not have time to recognize anything. In those schools, what we are seeing is those young people now are looking at those homeless centers as places to go with adults who are prepared to help them process, number one, and number two, to help direct them to the other kinds of resources that are represented both within our health department, places like Roberta's House, where people and young people and families can begin to make those connections. The third piece is the work that we are doing to make sure that within the actual, what should I say, that the work that we've done that Dr. Nguyen referred to, it was a 3-year grant given specifically to 13 schools by the federal government in West Baltimore. And one of the things that we have found is that, one, even when we have absolutely the increase of mental health professionals in schools, we are adding through the school district budget. We are ensuring that every school have a minimum of 1 full-time. But the piece that we found is that we also need to make sure that there are full complement of activities. Bree talked about her work and her connection to an outside organization. Her voice, she was telling all of us earlier about her trip to Cuba, her trip to New Orleans. And what we are finding also, the principals and adults are telling us, is that at the same time that we are increasing mental health supports for young people who have experienced trauma, we also have to increase the amount of enrichment opportunities, the amount of art, the amount of travel, the ability to see things beyond just the blocks of hurt. And so part of our comprehensive approach is how do we, yes, increase the treatment that our young people deserve, but how do we also help them connect to the potential beyond without deriving and down spiraling into a broken child narrative. Because our young people do not need to hear us as adults referring to them always as broken. They need to get the healing that they deserve, but then also be able to see the potential. That's why we need funding for art. That's why we need funding for sports. That's why we need funding for student government. And that's the other piece when we talk about the concentrated poverty money that is coming through Kerwin. And it's important for our legislators to know this. That's where we are seeing and hearing principals say we've got to be able to build an integrated approach if we are really, as schools, going to work and build towards being places of healing. So that's what we're doing.
Who is the Baltimore City Health Commissioner. She is a Hopkins-trained pediatrician and believes that equitable care is a basic right to all. Dr. Duraza has a interest in trauma-informed care in children and adolescents and the use of technology to improve health outcomes. Can you tell us, Dr. Duraza, more about actually can you describe the importance of trauma prevention programs, which many of our members have talked about, but in particular from the health lens, including maternal home visiting programs, and discuss how resource constraints impede your office's efforts to address childhood trauma.
Okay. So I had to go after the two toughest speakers. But honestly, to state it simply, trauma prevention is upstream diseases in the mid-90s. That ACEs study showed that exposure to trauma increased risk for 7 out of 10 of the leading cause of death in the U.S. So by my children being exposed to trauma, we're increasing their risk of developing deadly diseases. It's important to note that that original ACEs study was done in a largely Caucasian population that was middle class and suburban. In 2013, the urban ACEs study was performed in Philadelphia. It had a much more diverse population. About 40% of folks surveyed there were African American background. In addition to the original ACEs study, they also included questions around racism and discrimination. So not surprisingly, about 40 of those respondents had about 4 or more exposures. So we know that trauma exposure is linked to the increased risk of diseases and increased risk of behaviors, and one of the core functions of any health department is to promote health, but also to prevent disease. So knowing this, we must view trauma prevention through the lens of disease prevention. So particularly in our city, it's important that we are keenly focused on promoting equity, developing programs and interventions that appropriately address the disparities amongst our residents in particular as a result of years of structural disadvantages and widespread racism, all of which have caused significant trauma. So I'm proud really to talk about the work that the health department is doing, and the fact that we have an entire office devoted to trauma exposure in young people. Our Office of Youth and Trauma Services, led by William Keller. We also house multiple programs that span across the department, addressing residents with a trauma-informed approach. For example, our children who died either of homicide or physical abuse. This team works to change internal policies to better prevent these child fatalities. For instance, ensuring that families with the most risk are prioritized for enrollment in prenatal and early childhood home visiting services. Our Office of Youth and Trauma Services has full-time trauma and home care trainers on staff that support the training of people across the city in a trauma-informed approach. They also run local programming like our Supporting Male Survivors of Violence, which links young African-American males in the Madison and East End neighborhoods with community-based trauma-focused treatment and support services. We also run a program called the Youth Services and Advocacy Project. It's another program that really serves young people between ages of 11 to 24 that have been exposed to violence, either primarily or secondarily. This project is providing intensive case management, psychoeducational groups, and referrals for mental health and other support services for youth exposed to trauma. Despite all this great work, we're constrained by limited resources. We work very strategically to assure that our resources go into support of planning, implementation, evaluation of programming, technical assistance, accurate measurement and analysis of our metrics and outcomes, and we work to partner with other agencies in this field so that we can help advance the mission of preventing trauma, but there remains this ongoing prevalence and pervasiveness of trauma and violence in our city. So in closing, thank you, Congressman Cummings. I sincerely appreciate the invitation to be on this distinguished panel that really allowed us as major thought leaders to come together and have a space to discuss our triumphs and our challenges. I'm really honored to sit amongst this group, and the health department is in full support of a streamlined, action-oriented, citywide strategy to address trauma and violence. Because as I said at the beginning, trauma prevention and intervention is disease prevention rate 4. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Plaza. Thank you for the outstanding work. Commissioner Michael Harrison, who is the Baltimore City Police Commissioner. Prior to serving the city of Baltimore, he served in the New Orleans for nearly 28 years, where he rose to the department or to the rank of superintendent. Commissioner Harrison, could you describe the importance of building trust between the police department and the community to help reduce crime?
Thank you, Dr. Wynn, and thank you, Congressman, for your leadership before bringing this all together for such an important time. I'm honored to be with our distinguished guests. I say to every new police officer joining, not just that police department, but this police department, and at every graduation, before a new officer hits the streets, I charge them to do 3 things. One, build relationships that were never built. Improve good relationships that we have, and repair relationships that are broken. I have said it to every single new person and every single graduate, and I will continue to say it because building community trust and community support is paramount to making sure we can, one, reduce trauma and prevent trauma. Because as Dr. Claire said so eloquently, and you breathe behind and really validated it so eloquently, trauma happens in so many ways. People are traumatized through violence either on or to their family members, their parents, on or to their peers, like we experience on or to themselves. And then it is further exacerbated by the socialization of what happened through their peer groups. It creates a perpetual cycle where then it continues to happen, and then people who get harmed begin to harm people. And so then what happens is it begins to shape the youth's view, which is usually a negative view of the police's ability to prevent crime. And then it shapes their view, usually a negative view of our effectiveness to respond to it, to assure justice. And then, as Bree said, how do we deal with helping the youth during this process where they've been traumatized? And the answer is we are not dealing with it. And it wasn't dealt with, or it hasn't been dealt with. So it then further exacerbates the perceptions of police. And the only way to overcome those negative perceptions is through community engagement and building trust with the community. It is done in a couple of ways. Number one, it is about police legitimacy versus police illegitimacy. Because there are, and we've seen, police actions that are truly illegitimate, that erode trust, and that make people not have good relations with police departments here in Baltimore and across our country. The only way to overcome police illegitimacy and then talk about police legitimacy, because with bad community police relationships, it is hard to explain and have people accept our legitimate responses to crime. Our legitimate responses to make sure we ensure justice. And things that are totally legitimate have really no credibility when you don't account for the police illegitimacy, which can only be overcome through strict accountability and total transparency. Those are the two things that we really must have to overcome police illegitimacy, which really fosters, number one, the belief that we can police ourselves, but it is also how we make people trust that, number one, we care, number two, we can do something about it. Most often, it's the police department, which is the 24-hour form of government, because the other agencies are not usually available or cannot respond in the way police respond. So we sort of get accused of what happens to, or what fails to happen in the correct way to youth when they are traumatized, or what happens to their family members, their parents, their peer group, or themselves. Or they become traumatized and further traumatize others because they're inflicting trauma on other people, which is also a form of trauma. There are a couple of things that we're doing, but it really has to be comprehensive with all of us as we're doing in multidisciplinary fashion, like we're doing today with nonprofits, for-profits, faith-based, academics, government, all working as one team to bring about solutions. A number of things that we're doing is crisis intervention training, to making sure our officers are equipped and trained to deal with people who we recognize through that training are dealing with a mental episode or some mental defect, so that we can reduce violence, but actually build trust and reduce uses of force, so that we can have people get the appropriate response rather than enforcement, which is not always the case, because people are acting sometimes out of trauma. Then it is police interactions with youth. How do we deal with that? How do we recognize youth that are acting out of trauma-induced behavior as opposed to criminological induced behavior? It is not always, though they may be committing a crime sometimes, it is sometimes acting out of trauma. We have to understand that and be able to treat that appropriately. And then what we're doing is bringing a new program called Ethical Policing is Courageous, which we in New Orleans teach officers about peer intervention. We do a good job teaching ourselves how to de-escalate citizens' behavior. Intervention and ethics teaches officers how to de-escalate each other's behavior, so that we can prevent the negative thing from happening, which may not always build trust right away, but it builds credibility that we didn't value. So all of that's happening, but it really has to be comprehensive. I'm proud that we are part of this group to find solutions to be able to deal with youth trauma, because if unchecked, like I said, and as Bria said, it will become a perpetual cycle, and then people go on to, whether they know it or not, committing trauma and harm on others, which then we have to respond to again. And then it becomes exponentially harder to build trust, because we're then working behind the curve to deal with both illegitimate and legitimate policing action. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrison. Actually, you remind me of the quote that someone says about trauma, which is that it's hurt people hurt people. Well, I now turn to our last panelist, Tisha Edwards, who is the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, which you heard Mayor Young talk about, where Ms. Edwards is leading efforts to identify and develop opportunities to support young people across the city. Prior to her recent executive roles, Ms. Edwards spent a decade at multiple city public schools as a high school principal, chief of staff, and the interim CEO. Could you describe how the city's response to childhood trauma is coordinated, and how federal efforts could help to improve this?
Thank you so much, Chris, for coming, for having us here. You are always the person who raises their hand first for children, first for Baltimore. And I'm just extremely grateful that you just keep doing what you do on behalf of our community. As Mary Young said, my office's sole responsibility is to care for Baltimore's children and its families. And I will never forget the call that he made to me and asked me would I step in and step up to help him create a city where children and families could thrive. big, audacious task that comes with extraordinary responsibility. But the good news about that is that both Mary Young and I believe that Baltimore has everything that it needs in order to address some of the challenges that we've talked about today. And this acknowledgement in our own community that we are a community that has had to deal with the challenges of generational trauma. And our understanding that to address those challenges, as Senator Van Hollen said, this is an all-hands-on-deck moment for Baltimore. And it just gives me great optimism to be a part of this panel, which is a group of people who care very deeply about this community and its children. And every day, we are dedicating everything that we have to be a part of the solution. And then to look out into this crowd of individuals who are representative of everything that's good about Baltimore. So although the conversation this morning has been heavy, and you leave saying, what more can we do? The good news is that, again, I believe really strongly in every fiber of my being, that from the federal level to the state level, to the city level, to the community level, to the family level, to the youth level, Baltimore is resilient, Baltimore is strong, and Baltimore is a town that's known for fighting hard for its community. So it feels good to be here and just surrounded by so much love and support for Baltimore and its children. The question is, do we have a coordinated response? And I think the answer is kind of. There's absolutely leaders in this space, like Councilman Zeke Cohen, who has dedicated his space in City Council to elevating the conversation about trauma-informed care, and has created a call to action for the city to galvanize its policy, making authority, its resource allocation ability to really have a targeted approach. And so I think that we are moving in the right direction. It's a community who is embracing this opportunity. And so are we completely coordinated? I think we're getting there. We have a school system, as Dr. Santelises has said, that's making huge investments in the wholeness of children. And her entire leadership platform since becoming our CEO has made caring for children and creating the space for academic success and knowing that's rooted in children being whole. And so we have lots of leaders who come together who, from their very specific place in the work, is moving this work forward. But absolutely, we need to have more conversations, we need to be more coordinated and much more intentional around this effort related to healing Baltimore. And that's really what this is about, is a healing strategy. And dedicating, as I said, resources and capacity to the healing, and healing of our children, but also healing of the caretakers of our children, because they are a part of an extended community of individuals who are also in an extraordinary amount of pain. And because they are in pain, it leaves them ill-equipped to address the pain of someone else. It's like being on the airplane, right? What do they say when you take off for landing? Put the mask over yourself first. And once you are okay, then you're able to care for your children and the other folks who are traveling with you. So to think that we can do this without caring for caregivers means that we have a blind spot in the work. So absolutely, children are at the center, but they are a part of an extended community of men and women that we must embrace and be empathetic to where they are in their own journey of healing. You know, one of the quotes, Elijah Cummings, that I live by every day, every morning I wake up and I think about what Frederick Douglass has said. And he said it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so that's where we are. We are trying to build strong, that's the prevention. And then we won't have to over-invest in the intervention if we can get the prevention right. And so the work of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success is all about building strong children so that we don't have to repair broken men. With that said, I love the question that you called Congressman Cummings, which is what can the federal government do to help all of us in this mighty, mighty work. From our perspective, there are three things that we would like to see the federal government do. First is to promote the education and awareness of ACEs and revere science among congressional members and within the federal government so that there is broad bipartisan support for this work. As the panelists have laid out, this is not a Baltimore issue. This is a universal issue impacting every part of our country, every community, every neighborhood, and every socioeconomic group. Does it impact urban communities more acutely? Absolutely. But every child in this country needs to be better supported and recognize of the ACE indicators that are happening across all parts of our country. So this is a universal issue that ties us all together, that needs bipartisan support. Secondly, Congressman Cummings, what we would like to see is the establishment of a federal interagency task force that looks at the federal policies, education, and resources that are coordinated across the government to improve outcomes for overall health and wellness. We need all people at the table, again reiterating what Senator Van Hollen talked about, this being an all hands on deck moment. And the federal government can lead the way in this interagency task force. And finally, we want to integrate the knowledge of the effects of ACEs into federal policies and procurement so that funding is targeted to communities and interventions that are most likely to mitigate the effects of childhood trauma. And I would just add to this that it's really important that we have a culturally competent response to these issues. This is not a one-size-fits-all, and in many cases, a lot of the barriers in urban communities around successfully leveraging federal resources is that everything is, not that evidence-based practices aren't important because they are, but equally as important is culturally responsive practices, because there are particular needs in particular communities that need to be elevated, that need to be resourced, and as Dr. Bethel spoke about, we should not be afraid of innovation in this space. This is an opportunity for breakthrough community engagement, and where we can have grassroots engagement around individuals having the opportunity to have agency in their own communities around solving the challenges of children and families. And so I think it's really important that we are evidence-based, but we are also culturally competent. And so I'm just hopeful that the federal government will embrace those as core principles as we move this work forward. Thank you so much, Congress.
Thank you so much, Ms. Edwards, and I want to thank all the panelists. I hope you can join me in thanking all our panelists for their remarks. You all have highlighted what we are already doing to support our children, develop resilience and healing, and strengthen our city. And you've highlighted also what more we can do in our children and our families. And so I'd like to thank Congressman Cummings again for convening this conversation on the urgent public health concern that is childhood trauma, as I turn to him for closing remarks.
I want to thank our panel. Great. You did a great job. But I want to thank you for coming this board together. A lot of people were wondering when we put this together. We started about 2 or 3 months ago, because it's something that we know that we have to work on and work on hard. One of my favorite Goodwill Hunting, and one line in it that I shall never forget. It's embedded in the DNA of somebody. When a troubled child, played by Matt Damon, went to a psychiatrist, played by Robin Williams, to get in trouble. And the one line that I shall never forget, psychiatrist saying, "It's not your fault." As we listen here today, we understand a lot of people say negative things about our children, but it's not their fault. And we need to be about the business of repairing folks and allowing them to be all that God meant for them to be. The experts in this room, all of us sitting in the audience, we get it. And I want to thank Tisha Edwards for 3 recommendations for the drive to the federal government. We will work on all of it, but I want people to understand. And Congressman Sarbanes to tell you about this is a idea. A lot of people think that the people, congressmen and women, are experts on everything. I'm serious. Last time I counted, Joe, I was an expert on 157 issues. 157. And I want you to understand that these are the issues that you all wrestle with every day. And so you become the witnesses. You know the impact on children. You know that hurt people hurt people. You know it. And we're going to do Sarbanes and Howard, Cardin, all of us, we're going to go all out all weekend to make sure that the resources get to our city and get to our city. And we're going to make sure that we work hard to educate our fellow members of Congress and the Senate about how significant this issue is. So we need everybody's help. I think the police commissioner said a moment ago that basically we have to all join in. Sitting on the sidelines of life. But what will solve a lot of issues is when we bring expertise together, that we not operate in silos, and that we make sure, or do everything in our power to make sure that whatever we do is effective and efficient. Effectiveness and efficiency. That's why you will be out of here by 11:30, because we realize you have time. On my watch is not working. I gotta the watch. Amen. I really screwed that one up. But again, I want to thank. I needed to laugh today. spend all of this money, we spend a lot of money. Going back to what Giselle said before, you know, we're trying to prepare folks who, you know, in many ways are broken. And we have to put them back together. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them, nothing like that. But the trauma, in and of itself, impacts their lives. And so, again, I want to thank all of you, and so that we'll see on time. Thank you very much.